Today, I want to get into V talking about an emergency situation where he might have been in the hospital. We also have a moment where people believe this male/idol tried to kiss V and V did not want it. And then we have a company apologizing to V and Jung Kook for something they did. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave Desai. Hater or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling, tea spilling mug merch, and let's go. If you are not aware and have not already been woken up by the many sounds of ARMY, the Batman signal and the whale call of ARMY, then let me explain what has happened and why a CEO had to apologize to V. But first, let me give some backstory. Jimin has been set to be releasing his solo album called Face, and people have been going wild. This is obviously highly anticipated, and people have been super excited to know what the album will sound like, and it's been talked about since it was announced. The colors of the solo album are very sleek and modern looking, and so it's even a great piece to put on the shelf even if you don't like the music, although I'm sure you will. Jimin has been starting his promo for the album, and Elle magazine actually featured his face on the magazine. The magazine was Elle Hong Kong, and this is a huge deal in Hong Kong. K-pop has been around for forever, but only recently has America really been fully exposed to it, and to the point where it's mainstream here. However, the K-pop craze has long hit China and Japan many years ago, and it's nothing new if you talk to Chinese people or Japanese people. So of course, this was an easy decision for Elle to decide to put Jimin on the front cover. However, while giving Jimin a great spread, they seem to have made a big mistake in the magazine. While it seemed to be an honest mistake, a lot of fans were very mad. So what was this mistake? There was a little blurb that was written about Jimin and BTS. However, the blurb seemed to include all of the members except Jungkook and V. They forgot those two members, and typically with publications, those two will get forgotten. It's usually someone from the younger boys in the group, sometimes Jimin, sometimes V, and rarely Jungkook, but it does happen. Of course, fans were mad because they felt like the magazine misrepresented the boys, but what was worse was this mistake was not caught before printing. So when fans purchase the magazine, they will see this mistake in there. What's worse about this is fans can't even be too mad and not buy the magazine, because if Elle sees the Jimin cover didn't sell as much as they were expecting, they will think that BTS can't sell and never feature them again. Of course, this is a more dramatic scenario. The CEO or brand rep came out to apologize firmly to say that they were deeply sorry for this mistake, and they meant to include every member. They said this online and made sure to include every member in their online post, and a formal apology to V and Jung Kook as well as BTS and ARMY. The issue that they clarified was that, as I said, the mistake was printed, and if you buy the physical copy, it'll still be there. The mistake. So there were probably too many magazines to recall, and that definitely sucks. A lot of ARMYs or just collectors like to collect publications as a piece of the boys' career and success, and this is a big publication and a huge deal that doesn't include all of the boys. But hey, they apologize and mistakes happen, so it is what it is. Now, Jimin's solo activity isn't the only thing that is going on. They seem to also be launching V's solo activity now. So not V's album, but V is booked and busy. Recently, it was announced that he will be doing Siu Jin. This is a reality show about V and his friends. V has done a reality show with his friends before, and if you have watched it, you'll know how fun they all are together. The reality show is called In the Soup Friendcation, and I reacted and watched the whole season on Patreon. If you would like to react with me and fangirl with me, I will link the Patreon below. We still have an open $1 tier you can sign up for. Hope to see you there. But anywho, the show has been picking up on press in Korea, and people are so excited for more episodes. Recently, V did a press conference where he talked about the show and his experience filming it. V mentioned that after filming, V came home after filming and was hooked up to 3 IVs. He continued to talk about this was a sign that he had worked really hard, and urged ARMYs and viewers to please watch it since he worked so hard on it. It was a little bit weird to hear the reporters and other people laugh when V said this. However, understanding that in Asian culture, it's quite normal or expected to work so hard that you would pass out or even die for your job. Taking pride in your work is very normal over there. But if you're confused on why V would need to be hooked up to an IV, let me give you all the information that I know. I believe each bag of IV can be different depending on what the person might need, but I think overall it's like a saline solution, usually with lots of electrolytes. It's very hydrating, and it's basically broken down so that it's easier for the bloodstream to absorb it. So in many cases, for people who need it, if you don't have IV, you could pass out from dehydration. So it's just the quickest way to get it in you. So it's a good hunch that V was extremely dehydrated after the filming. People say that this is a reason why V hates being an idol, because he is often dehydrated or whatever, and I could imagine that would be so stressful. While this is tough to hear and quite unsettling, we don't know if he was saying this fact as a hyperbole hyperbole or more of a literal thing, because this could be something that is said to signify, oh, he just means he worked really hard on it. And he totally did work really hard on it, so regardless, we should definitely support and try to watch it. We can definitely assume that if he was in fact in need of 3 IV bags, that he was admitted to the hospital right after the shooting. And there's many things that would affect this. The show Seojin was said to be in Mexico, which is very hot, and he was working in the kitchen. If he is not used to this temperature or whatever, then obviously when he gets back, he is going to need some severe hydration. But please, someone should have gotten him some Gatorade while he was on set. Of course, it's concerning to hear because I think he is okay and he looks well enough to sit there and talk about it, so we have really nothing to worry about. However, there was a situation in which did anger some armies, and some people were left feeling like V must have been violated or that he must have been very upset. So a slight trigger warning, I guess. We're going to be talking about unwanted kisses, although I think this should be okay, but here's that warning. But if you didn't know this story, here goes. Back in 2016, BTS was promoting in Japan, I believe, and there was a Japanese group called Boys and Men. The group had nothing but praise for BTS, saying things like how they felt like fangirls, even just watching them do things, even though they were working with BTS. I'm sure they did truly like BTS, as BTS at the time was nowhere near the global success they have now. So their love of BTS was strictly just from watching BTS work and move. And they were like, wow, these guys are talented. So there was a moment that was recorded where one of the Boys and Men members was trying to kiss V's hand, and V was trying really hard to push down and away. You can visibly see that V is shaking, and the members of Boys and Men is trying really hard to kiss V. And V is giving a very shallow laugh. V was likely fine after that, and there was no real issue here. However, armies thought it was so funny because later there was a photo that resurfaced where we could see V looking traumatized and holding on to RM's hand. Armies were saying it appeared like V was squeezing RM's hand and asking for help, but I think they were just holding hands. I think a lot of the times the fandom likes to see the boys and very little boys, like at age 13 or 14, and then the boys need protection. Even back in 2016, these boys were much older and didn't really need support or your protection. These boys, even at the time, were likely millionaires already and could more than likely face any problems that would come their way. I never understood the obsession with trying to infantilize these guys. It seems like something the fans fantasize about, like shrinking the boys down and putting them in their pocket. And of course, no judgment if that's how you imagine them. I just don't necessarily understand it, because a lot of the fandom are also people who are younger than the boys. And Korean culture is very much against you trying to infantilize your elders. And I mean that is considered very rude. People were saying that V pushing his hand down was a way of fighting back, and that BTS or V probably hates Boys and Men. But it usually takes a lot more to upset someone. In the entertainment industry, you just have to have thick skin with every person you meet, including other celebrities. Small things like this, where I am assuming V probably liked the group, which is why they were working together, shouldn't affect V too much where he would go home and cry about it. I don't think so. Since this clip came out, I'm really hoping that the Japanese group does not get any hate. You also have to understand customs, and the way we show affection is also different in every culture. Stuff like in French culture of kissing someone on the cheek when saying hello might be fine, but then in maybe a different, more conservative culture, it would be seen as the person trying to seduce the other person. So things like that. So I like to say, before anyone gets too mad, they need to think about that and also understand that V is likely not upset at all. But I'm very curious to know what you think about this. Do you feel the apology for Elle magazine was sufficient? How do you feel about V rushed to the ER for the IV drip? And how do you feel V felt about the Japanese boy group trying to kiss V, and do you think it was a big deal? Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.